There is a demon that lives within all of us, though it doesn't have horns or red skin. No, this demon is far more familiar. It's not a creature of fantasy, but something deeply human. It is the anger that simmers beneath the surface, the rage that rises when we feel disrespected or thwarted. It's that burning sensation in your chest when the world doesn't go your way, when life doesn't meet your expectations. It's the part of you that explodes in moments of tension, ruining relationships, leaving you vulnerable, and ultimately making you weak. But what if I told you that there is a way to kill this demon? A way to bury it deep within, to walk through the chaos of life with calm eyes, while everyone else around you is screaming. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the story of a man who did just that. Miyamoto Musashi, one of the most dangerous warriors in history, whose name struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. He didn't just win battles. He mastered his emotions. He was a living embodiment of the power of inner stillness. Musashi fought over 60 life-or-death duels and emerged victorious every single time. Not because he was faster, not because he was stronger, but because he had learned to rid himself of the very thing that so often hinders us: anger. So, let's dive deeper into how Musashi achieved this and how his teachings can help us live a life where anger no longer controls us.
Let's start with a brutal truth. Anger doesn't make you strong. It makes you owned. Every time you lash out, every time you explode, every time someone pushes your buttons and you react, you're showing your cards. You're revealing to the world exactly how they can control you. Every time you let your emotions dictate your actions, you become a puppet to your own anger. This realization was a turning point for Musashi. Early on, he understood that anger was not a source of power. It was a chain, a leash that made him predictable. And in a world filled with enemies, predictability is deadly. Musashi saw that true strength didn't come from aggression. It came from controlling his emotions, from refusing to be manipulated by external forces. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "When you are disturbed by external things, it is not they that trouble you, but your own judgment of them." Reflect on that for a moment. If someone can make you angry, they can control you. You're no longer in control. Your emotions, your reactions, your ego, they are in control. Musashi cut those strings. He trained himself to become immune to provocation. He walked into battle with the same stillness you'd expect from a monk. No matter what insults came his way, no matter how brutal the fight, Musashi remained calm, always watching, always calculating. This was Musashi's greatest secret. He didn't fight with emotion. He fought with awareness.
Musashi didn't win battles because he was the fastest or the strongest. What made him terrifying wasn't his sword. It was his mind. He mastered the art of emotional detachment, and this, above all else, is what made him a true warrior. When you let anger control you, you are like a warrior who fights without purpose, without direction. Every move is a reaction to the world around you. But Musashi was different. He did not react to the world. He controlled it. He didn't need to engage in rage or reckless aggression. His power lay in his stillness. A man who is unshakable is a man who cannot be broken. When Musashi walked into battle, he was not worried about winning or losing. He wasn't concerned with his opponent's strength or speed. He had learned the one thing that all great warriors must understand. Real strength isn't how hard you can hit. It's how impossible you are to provoke. And that's what made Musashi so dangerous. Not his sword, not his skill, but his ability to remain unmoved. The most terrifying thing about a man who has mastered his emotions is that he becomes completely unpredictable. No one can manipulate him, and no one can break him. Musashi's strength came from his mind, his control over his thoughts, his feelings, and his actions. That is true power.
There is a story, not widely known, about the moment Musashi truly understood how to kill his anger. It happened when he was still a young man, barely out of his teens, and it would become one of the defining moments of his life. Musashi challenged one of Japan's most renowned swordsmen, Arima Kihei. Kihei was everything Musashi was not: formal, experienced, and sure of himself. He had a reputation, a certain elegance in his swordplay, and an air of invincibility. When Musashi arrived at the duel, he did something that would shock anyone watching. He didn't carry a katana, the weapon everyone expected. Instead, he arrived holding a wooden stick. At that moment, most people would have expected Kihei to become outraged. In fact, many would have thought that Musashi had set himself up for failure. But Musashi had no such fear. Kihei mocked him openly, taunting him for what he saw as an insult to the tradition of swordsmanship. Most men in Musashi's position would have reacted in one of two ways. They would have become defensive, ready to prove themselves, or they would have been consumed with rage, feeling humiliated in front of others. But Musashi remained calm, a picture of cold precision. He didn't respond to the taunts. He didn't retaliate. He simply waited. He observed. What Musashi understood in that moment was that anger only clouds judgment. It clouds clarity. It clouds purpose. The world can taunt you, insult you, and disrespect you, but none of that matters if you have control over your emotions. Musashi knew that reacting in anger wasn't the solution, it was the problem. When the duel began, Kihei lunged forward, expecting Musashi to fight in anger, to meet him with force and rage. But Musashi didn't fall for that trap. He struck not with emotion, but with purpose, cold, calculated, and deliberate. In an instant, the fight was over. Kihei, who had underestimated Musashi's calm demeanor, was defeated. Musashi didn't fight with anger. He fought with awareness. His calmness was his greatest weapon. This duel was not about showing strength, not about proving anything. It was about remaining still and focused and understanding that anger only weakens the person who lets it control them. As we move further into Musashi's philosophy, we see that his power wasn't just in his skill with the sword. It was in his control of the mind. Musashi's greatest battle was never with his opponents. It was with himself. He knew that the mind, like a blade, needed to be kept sharp. And just like a sword, if you let the mind rust with unchecked emotion, it loses its power. Musashi wrote, "Do nothing which is of no use." This simple maxim applied not only to his swordsmanship, but to every aspect of his life, including his emotions. Anger, if not used with purpose, is a waste of energy. It serves no purpose but to distract, to cloud one's ability to think clearly. In battle, Musashi's focus was always on awareness, not allowing his emotions to dictate his next move, but rather responding with sharpness and precision. And in life, this same philosophy applies. Anger doesn't help you win arguments, resolve conflicts, or build relationships. It only makes you weak. When you let anger rule you, you reveal yourself to your enemies. They see your vulnerability, and that is where they can strike. The mind is like a blade. It can either be rusted by emotion or sharp and precise, cutting through the distractions of life. Musashi understood that clarity of thought is the most powerful weapon anyone can have. And it is a weapon that can only be honed
by mastering one's emotions.
In today's world, we face daily challenges that test our patience, our tolerance, and our control over our emotions. Whether it's a disagreement at work, a frustrating situation in traffic, or a difficult conversation at home, we are constantly faced with opportunities to react in anger. But, just as Musashi did, we have the power to choose how we respond. Take a moment to think about your own triggers. What makes you angry? What situations cause you to lose your temper? Now, imagine if, instead of reacting in the heat of the moment, you paused. You took a breath, gave yourself a moment to reflect, and chose to respond from a place of clarity. This is what Musashi practiced, and it's a lesson we can all apply to our modern lives. By training ourselves to pause before reacting, we give our minds the space to choose how to respond. It's not about suppressing our emotions. It's about giving ourselves the time and awareness to choose a calm response over an emotional one. And just like Musashi, the more we practice this, the sharper our minds become. We don't need to fight every battle with anger. We can face challenges with confidence. Musashi didn't just eliminate anger from his life. He cultivated detachment, a powerful philosophy that allowed him to remain untouched by the world's chaotic forces. Detachment doesn't mean withdrawal from life or from relationships. It means freedom from the emotional reactions that control us. It's the art of observing life, not through the lens of personal attachment or ego, but through the clarity of a detached mind. In a world where we are constantly chasing approval, seeking validation, and trying to control the uncontrollable, detachment offers us a profound form of freedom. Musashi, in his training and in his life, understood that attachment is the root of suffering. The more we cling to things, whether it's our expectations of others, our desires for control, or our egos, the more vulnerable we become to disappointment and anger. By detaching himself from the world's demands and distractions, Musashi became emotionally impervious to external stimuli. He didn't rely on external circumstances for his happiness or stability. His happiness, his peace, and his strength came from within. And that's the core of Musashi's philosophy. Freedom from attachment leads to true strength. The core of Musashi's emotional mastery wasn't his ability to stay angry, but his ability to detach from his emotions. He understood that anger is a response to something you think you can control, something that doesn't meet your expectations or desires. And when we're unable to control the world around us, we lash out in frustration. But Musashi realized that in detachment there is power. By refusing to attach himself to the outcomes of events, he liberated himself from the chains of emotional reaction. In essence, he gave himself the freedom to observe rather than participate in the emotional turmoil of life. This is something we all can learn from. Think about the last time you were angry. What was it that triggered you? Was it someone's rude comment, an unexpected setback, or maybe a failure to meet your own expectations? In all of these cases, the root cause of anger lies in attachment to outcomes, to how others should behave, or to how life should unfold. Musashi understood that the key to emotional freedom was to detach from these external forces. When we detach, we stop trying to control the uncontrollable. We stop demanding the world bend to our will. And in doing so, we free ourselves from frustration, disappointment, and most importantly, anger. In today's world, detachment is more necessary than ever. We live in an age of constant connectivity, social media validation, and a culture that demands instant results and perfection. The pressure to live up to unrealistic expectations, whether from society, our peers, or even ourselves, leads us to frustration and anger when things don't go according to plan. Take social media, for example. Every day we are bombarded with curated versions of other people's lives, successes, accomplishments, and highlights. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind, like you're not good enough. And that's when the anger starts to build. Anger at yourself, at others, at life for not being fair. But detachment allows us to step back from this constant comparison. It helps us to recognize that the world doesn't owe us perfection, and we don't need to chase it. Detaching from these expectations gives us the space to live authentically, to let go of our attachments to validation and approval, and to be at peace with where we are. In practice, detachment can be as simple as taking a break from social media, choosing not to engage in petty arguments, or letting go of the need to control every aspect of your life. It's about focusing on the things that truly matter to you and letting go of the rest. By learning to detach, just like Musashi, we stop reacting to the world. We start to control how we respond, instead of being controlled by the circumstances around us.
Detachment doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistent practice and self-awareness. Just as Musashi trained his mind, we too must train ourselves to detach. One of the ways Musashi did this was through voluntary hardship. He intentionally removed comfort from his life, sleeping outside, fasting, and facing discomfort head-on. This wasn't about punishing himself. It was about conditioning his mind to rely on nothing but inner strength. In modern life, we can apply this principle by deliberately stepping outside of our comfort zones. We can remove distractions, simplify our lives, and practice moments of stillness in a world that never stops. Whether it's taking time each day to meditate, journaling your thoughts, or setting aside moments of quiet reflection,
In the end, Musashi did not teach us how to fight others. He taught us how to stop fighting ourselves. Anger is not a force we conquer once. It is a shadow that returns again and again, asking us who we choose to be. Every moment we remain calm, every insult we refuse to carry, every storm we walk through without letting it inside us, we reclaim a piece of our freedom. Musashi's lesson is simple. A mind that cannot be provoked cannot be defeated. And when anger no longer rules your heart, you discover a deeper kind of power, a quiet strength that nothing in this world can touch.